Okay, Ryan cut himself pretty good and it keeps bleeding, so I'm patching him up. We washed it and rinsed it with water and some soap to get his hand clean after he stopped the initial bleeding, but it keeps bleeding. So I've got some yarrow that I ground to a fine powder in mortar and pestle. Right now I'm mixing it up to make something of like a paste. And I added some plantain infused oil and a little witch hazel. If I had some cayenne, I would throw that in there. But I want to get this to where it's kind of like a paste. I don't have any ready-made, so I would probably throw some other things in there if I had it, but I don't have any on hand. So the yarrow should help keep it from starting to bleed. It should also help some with the pain and help prevent some of the infection, along with the plantain that I got in there. So now I'm going to cut some nonstick gauze to about the right size to cover the wound. And here we go. This isn't the most sterile, but either is the wound. We've got it very clean though. And one thing I've noticed is a lot of times people want to put poultices and ointments and stuff right on the wound, and then that starts the bleeding again. So instead of doing that, I'm going to put it on the pad and then apply the pad to the wound. You can put this on dry, but I think that since it's not currently bleeding, I would rather have it wet. I'm going to slap that right on there. And then I'm going to put a stretchy fabric bandage on there. To keep that in place and to keep some pressure on it. When you get cut, the first thing you need to do is, first thing I would do is try to rinse it to get any debris out. Then stop the bleeding by applying pressure. Keep it over the level of your heart. When you are putting a bandage on, you want it snug, but you don't want it so snug that it's cutting off circulation. That'll make it throb. So that's on pretty snug. Watch his finger, make sure that the color doesn't change or that it doesn't start to swell. I will check this later today. But yeah, just a simple yarrow poultice with some plantain and olive oil. Clean the wound with just some warm, tepid water and some gentle soap. Gently pat dry. Rinse with some witch hazel. It's astringent, it'll help keep it clean. It'll also help some with the pain. Normally I have my own infused oils. I have some infusing right now on the table, but I didn't have any plantain oil ready, so I did purchase just a small bottle. One thing I found helpful too is the yarrow it can be kind of hard to get it crushed up to a fine powder, and it doesn't necessarily have to be fine, but I think it's more comfortable. So what I ended up doing was I put some of the yarrow in here and I ground it up just kind of like that until it was pretty fine. And then I used a tea strainer to get the bigger pieces out by just sort of grinding around in here, and then the fine material that will fall through the holes and the more coarse, harder stuff stays in the tea basket. So that's just one little tip. And then you end up with like a fine powder in here. I do have some photos of that we can add on, but yeah, well, I could just show you. Primarily I just poured some in here. You just sort of crush it around until you can get it to be as fine as you reasonably can. It's sort of just crush it. If you have a coffee grinder that you use only for herbs, that works too, or a blender. I wouldn't use a coffee grinder that you use for coffee because all your herbs will end up smelling like coffee. And some of the herbs you might not want to put in if it's going to be stuff you're going to consume. You see, I kind of ground that up. There's still a lot of grassy stuff. So I poured it into my little tea basket. go like this. And if you notice, the powder that's coming out is very fine. That way he doesn't end up with hard, dry, grassy stuff kind of stuck to the scab. But yeah, a tea basket that's about this size here works perfectly for that. And you can see that what I'm getting now is, instead of this coarse grassy stuff, I'm getting a fine powder. So that's what I used. I would have thrown some cayenne in there, probably some other things, but I kind of needed to whip this up quickly, so I just grabbed the stuff that I have here in my little home apothecary and got it made. You can grind this up and keep it dry and put it in a like a bottle or a glass container and put a lid on it, keep it tight. If it's dry like this, it'll keep for a long time. Theoretically, I believe it can keep up for like to 5 years if you keep the air away from it. But that's an easy thing to keep in your pack, and it'll help stop the bleeding. But I did select a couple other things that I thought would help with infection and pain too. So that's what we got. And hopefully he'll heal soon.
Thank you, baby.
You're welcome.